During this series so far, we have looked at Prince's guitar playing, his piano playing, dancing and vocals. But one other aspect of Prince's unbelievable talent, which again is sorely underrated, is his incredible songwriting. Indeed, Prince is still yet to be included into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, despite even being nominated in 2005, a complete scandal in itself. Prince wrote hundreds, if not thousands of songs during his lifetime, and with all the material still unreleased in the vault, who knows what the final numbers could be. Prince wrote songs for every genre you could imagine, from pop to rock, R&B to jazz, soul, funk, new wave, the list goes on and on. And as we know, Prince just didn't write songs for himself. He wrote songs for his other groups, Vanity 6, later Apollonia 6, The Time, The Family, and then for a whole host of other artists including Sheila E., Sheila Easton, Madonna, Ingrid Chavez, Tevin Campbell and Martika, just to name a few. So what makes Prince such a great songwriter? Well, let's break it down into sections. One of the things Prince was most known for in his writing was his sexually explicit content, especially in his early career. Indeed, it was one of his explicit tracks on the Purple Rain soundtrack that led to parental advisory stickers being brought in 1985, with the creation of the Parents Music Resource Centre. But it wasn't always just explicit content for the sake of it, or just to be shocking, even though Prince did go there at times, most notably with the Dirty Mind album. Prince, by admission, had said his explicit writing had come from reading his mother's dirty books as a child, which she kept hidden under her bed. After getting bored with them, Prince started writing his own, and the rest, as they say, is history. But many of Prince's explicit lyrics came in some of his most beautiful ballads. On Prince's second album we have the gorgeous and tender When We're Dancing Close and Slow.
When we're dancing close and slow.
This track has such atmosphere, with the music drawing you in with its space-age soulful keyboards and Prince's beautiful falsetto lyrics, where Prince is yearning to get close to his lover. And here, Prince, if you pardon the pun, slips in one of his most erotic lines. I want to come inside of you. I want to hold you when we're through. Can't you feel my love touching you? Prince would use many metaphors and double entendres in his erotic writing. Take this line from Do Me Baby from Prince's fourth album Controversy. Take me baby, kiss me all over. Play with my love. Bring out what's been in me for far too long. Baby, you know that's all I've been dreaming of. We also get a spoken section as Prince is making love, again complete with keyboard effects seeming to simulate his every stroke. Prince would take this spoken vocal a step further with his next ballad on the 1999 album with International Lover.
Good evening. This is your pilot, Prince speaking.
Here we see Prince's writing using the metaphor of a passenger jet flight whilst describing making love with him. We ask that you please observe the no letting go sign. I anticipate a few turbulence along the way. We are now making our final approach to satisfaction. Please bring your lips, your arms, your hips into the upright and locked position for landing. This makes the whole seduction writing so much more interesting than just stating the obvious. One of the best examples of Prince's use of metaphors, and one of my all-time favourite lines of any Prince song, came not on one of his seduction ballads, but in the trippy psychedelic pop of the Ballad of Dorothy Parker from the Sign of the Times album. My pants were wet, they came off, but she didn't see the movie because she hadn't read the book first. I mean, how brilliant is that? For me, there is nothing better than a song that tells a story, and Prince was a genius at this. One of his most well-known singles, Raspberry Beret, is a classic example. Here Prince tells a coming-of-age story with a well-built woman who wears a raspberry beret and coming in through the outdoor, naturally. Prince writes a truly infectious song which is just pure pop perfection. With some fantastic descriptive writing and imagery, Prince draws you into his world with this story. Rain sounds so cool as it hits the barn roof, and the horses wonder who you are. Thunder drowns out what the lightning sees, and you feel like a movie star. Another example of Prince's story writing genius is the wonderfully kooky Starfish and Coffee from the Sign of the Times album.
Starfish and coffee, maple syrup and jam, butterscotch.
Inspired by a true story from his then fiancée Susanna Melvoin, the song tells the story of Cynthia Rose, a girl she went to school with, who when asked what she had for breakfast would always reply, starfish and pee-pee. Prince loved the stories about Cynthia, and so he asked Susanna to write them down for him, although he told her the pee-pee had to go. Eventually, Prince took her stories, disappeared downstairs to his studio, and 10 hours later called Susanna down, and there it was. Starfish and Coffee was born. Although Susanna must take huge credit for the song, it's also Prince's writing genius inspired by her stories that's so impressive. To be able to put it all together, the writing, the music, the recording, all in just a matter of hours, was just incredible, and a real indication of his hyper-creative brain. Ask most people on the street to name a Prince song and they will probably say Purple Rain. It became such a huge event, the album, the movie, the song, that it propelled Prince to superstardom and made Prince synonymous with the colour purple, and he would forever be tied to the song. An anthemic and iconic track for the ages, but at its heart, Purple Rain is first and foremost a song about a relationship breaking down, be it between a lover or a friend. Here, Prince's writing is from the heart of someone trying to right a wrong. I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only wanted one time see you laughing. I only wanted to see you in the purple rain. It's a testament to Prince's writing and genius that he could write a heartbreaking ballad and turn it into one of the greatest anthemic songs ever recorded. Purple Rain may be considered an 80s anthem, but Prince also wrote another incredible anthem in the 90s, the incredibly uplifting Gold from the Gold Experience album.
All that glitters ain't gold.
Released at the height of his war against his record company Warner's, many people didn't understand what he was doing, biting the hand that supposedly feeds him. They didn't understand the huge risks he was taking by fighting for artists' rights, but they are beginning to now. And they didn't understand the name change or the artistic direction in which Prince was heading. And as such, some of his best ever work was largely ignored by the general public. Gold did get some chart success, reaching number 10 in the UK singles chart, but overall it was largely ignored, especially in the US. The track sees Prince writing an uplifting, spiritual and hopeful track, whilst also touching on issues like capitalism and the general lack of new ideas and new ways to get messages across. Everybody wants to sell what's already been sold. Everybody wants to tell what's already been told. What's the use of money if you ain't gonna break the mould? Even at the centre of fire, there is cold. All that glitters ain't gold. It's a fabulous track that, like Purple Rain, has stood the test of time and still sounds as fresh and new as the day it was recorded. And like with much of Prince's writing, there is plenty here for the listener to identify with and to find their own meanings. And by the time the MPG operator announces, "Welcome to the dawn, you are now an official member of the new power generation," the hairs on the back of your neck will be standing up and you will feel totally uplifted. Prince's hyper-creative brain was capable of so much, from the utterly sublime to the downright odd. He was totally fearless in his exploration of his psyche, and went to places many wouldn't dare in his writing. As such, he created a whole bunch of strange, sometimes disturbing, yet weird and wonderful tracks that only he could have come up with. Some of them are loved by fans, some not so much, and many are still not fully understood. A lot of these types of tracks would often be quick 2 to 3 minute affairs, often with strange instrumentation and rhythms, but some were more conventional and fleshed out. The early candidates in this section were once again centred around Prince writing about sex, but rather than in a loving or seductive way like his ballads, these were more about pure lust and passion, and sometimes disturbing in lyrical content. The worst offender in that count would be Sister from the Dirty Mind album. Here, Prince writes about being sexually abused at 16 years of age by his sister, who's twice his age, with the threat of being thrown out onto the streets if he doesn't comply, when all he wants is to be a friend. In this short story, we hear how his sister has taught this naive teenager all about the birds and the bees. My sister never made love to anyone else but me. She's the reason for my sexuality. She showed me where it's supposed to go. A blow job doesn't mean blow. Incest is everything it's said to be. Oh sister, don't throw me on the street again. Oh sister, I just want to be your friend. It's pretty disturbing stuff when you break it down, especially with a 21st century mindset, and there is probably no way that this would ever get made today, let alone released. But it is important to note that Prince never confirmed that this was a true story, and no wrongdoing between himself or his sisters was ever reported or made public. Still, it's interesting that he went there, and that for some reason this subject was on his mind. Maybe it was influenced by the stories in the dirty magazines he used to read as a kid, or maybe it happened to someone that he knew. We will never know for sure. All we do know is that in just 1 minute and 33 seconds, Prince created one of the most controversial and shocking songs ever recorded. Another of Prince's favourite sexual topics was masturbation, and Prince wrote 2 tracks which definitely belong in this category. The first is Jack You Off from the Controversy album. This one is a real tongue-in-cheek affair with quirky, bouncy and joyfully silly instrumentation. It's a track that doesn't take itself too seriously. Here, the premise of Prince's writing is basically Prince telling all the ladies out there that wherever they go or whatever they do, if it doesn't live up to expectations, no matter, because he can jack you off. If you're looking for somewhere to go, thought I'd take you to a movie show, sitting in the back, and I'll jack you off. I can't give you everything you want, but I can take you to a restaurant, and if you ain't hungry, I'll jack you off. If your old man ain't no good, come on over to my neighbourhood. We can jump in the sack and I'll jack you off. This is classic young Prince, full of bravado and bragging, but always with the tongue firmly planted in the cheek. In fact, a track like Jack You Off could easily have found a home on one of the Times albums, with the Morris Day persona giving this full gusto. The other really odd track about this subject is Tambourine from the Around the World in a Day album. Again, this track has really strange and unusual instrumentation and comes in at just 2 minutes 46. This time Prince uses a metaphor of playing his tambourine for masturbating, but also for the female genitalia. Oh my God, here you are, prettiest thing in life I've ever seen. Close my eyes, what's it like? What's it like inside your tambourine? Oh my God, there I go, falling in love with a face in a magazine. All alone, by myself, me and I play my tambourine. This time, rather than a tongue-in-cheek affair, Prince seems to be writing from a point that most young people go through, the loneliness and sexual needs that come with adolescence, that wondering and fantasizing and yearning for what it would be like to be with someone. Long days, lonely nights. Tambourine. There are so many tracks that could make this section. I could make a separate video about them all, so I'll just use a couple more examples. The first one is one of my personal favourites. I guess you could call it my Prince guilty pleasure, and it is Man in a Uniform from Prince's acoustic album The Truth. This track is just wonderfully crazy and just makes me smile and laugh with every listen. At just over 3 minutes, Prince writes a tale about being asked by his lover to wear his old grey suit every time they get down. She said, "Man in a uniform, tonight that's what I want you to be." She said, "3rd time this week you wore that old suit, but I don't give a damn, you see, 'cause man in a uniform do funny things to me." The music is a crazy mix of funky acoustic guitar, but with added bongos and a bugle. Yes, that's right, a bugle. Prince creates a crazy funky military theme complete with Prince shouting "Huh!" and a brilliant part when Prince shouts, "She says tonight, tonight, I want your attention, attention." It's just absolutely ridiculous mix of styles that somehow works. It's not going to win any awards for the writing, but it's just a classic example of how Prince can take any subject and write something memorable. The second and last choice in this section is Wedding Feast from the Rainbow Children. The Rainbow Children remains one of Prince's most divisive albums, with fans either seeming to love it or hate it. The main reason for this comes from the album's main theme. It's a concept album infused by jazz and funk, which mainly deals in its lyrical content with Prince's conversion to the Jehovah's Witness faith. Prince narrates the story in segues with his voice slowed down to a deep, almost slur-like effect. Wedding Feast could almost be classed as a segue at just 54 seconds long, but it's listed as a track on the album's cover and so makes it here into this list. The track comes at a part of the story when the main character, the Wise One, is set to marry his muse. Cue 54 seconds of an opera pastiche, as Prince has enormous fun with this, even giving a little giggle himself at the absurdity of it all. Now there must be a wedding, now there must be a feast. A feast, a feast, a smorgasbord at least, a brunch, a munch, of cake if just a piece, not just a vat of chitlins or turkey meat you see, we are what we eat so we must eat a leaf, we'll dine under a tree, unless it snows. Who else but Prince could write like that? During his lifetime, Prince was extremely concerned about the state of the world and would selflessly help many charities and individuals who needed help. Prince kept most of this philanthropic work private as he wasn't interested in receiving accolades for his generosity. He just genuinely cared about people and the many issues the world faced. Many of these issues and concerns made it into Prince's songwriting, culminating in some of his greatest ever tracks. Prince dealt with issues ranging from nuclear war to AIDS, poverty to politics, racism to sexuality. Prince was never afraid to confront the issues of the day and wrestle with them in his writing, whilst all the while keeping the groove funky. Probably the best example in this category is a song that not only is one of Prince's greatest ever tracks, but is also one of the greatest ever tracks of all time. Sign of the Times, from the Sign of the Times album.
In France, a skinny man died of a big disease with a little name.
Very few artists can write songs which resonate from one generation to the next, and with Sign of the Times, Prince wrote a song that is still bang on point to this day. In France, a skinny man died of a big disease with a little name. By chance his girlfriend came across a needle and soon she did the same. At home there were 17-year-old boys and their idea of fun is being in a gang called the Disciples, high on crack and toting a machine gun. It's incredibly powerful stuff as Prince deals with AIDS, gang culture, natural disasters, drug use, poverty and the onslaught of bad news you are confronted with every time you switch on the TV. Sound familiar? That's because all of these issues are still so relevant today, if not worse. Hurricane Annie ripped the ceiling off a church and killed everyone inside. You turn on the telly and every other story is telling you somebody died. A sister killed her baby because she couldn't afford to feed it, yet was sending people to the moon. September, my cousin tried reefer for the very first time. Now he's doing horse. It's June. This song should be on heavy rotation on all major radio stations today as it is so relevant and as the world needs so much help. One more thing to add with this song is the incredible music. It's a strikingly atmospheric, sparse, otherworldly creation that still today is like nothing else you've ever heard. It's a true masterpiece of musicianship that really supports and gives gravitas to the lyrics. It's truly remarkable and remains the greatest of Prince's social commentary songs for me, and the best example of his writing in this subject. Other important tracks to note in this category would include Money Don't Matter Tonight from the Diamonds and Pearls album. Here Prince writes about poverty and greed, and with the Gulf War that was happening at that time, Prince asked the question, is a child's life worth less than oil? Hey now, maybe we can find out the reason to send a child off to war. So what if we're controlling all the oil? Is it worth a child dying for? And then from the Musicology album we have Dear Mr. Man, in which Prince writes a track in the form of a letter aimed at the US government and covers many issues from war to AIDS, poverty, the environment, the civil rights movement. What's wrong with the world today? Things just got to get better. Dear Mr. Man, we don't understand. Maybe we should write a letter. Ain't no sense in voting, same song with a different name. Might not be in the back of the bus, but it shall feel just the same. Ain't nothing fair about welfare, ain't no assistance in AIDS. Ain't nothing affirmative about your actions until the people get paid. Prince continued to write and comment on world issues throughout his life and career, and on what would turn out to be his last album he would release in his lifetime, Hit and Run Phase 2, we have Baltimore.
If there ain't no justice, then there ain't no peace. If there ain't no justice, then
Prince wrote this protest song about the continuing death of African American males whilst in police custody after the death of Freddie Gray, who died from spinal cord injuries after being arrested for being in possession of a knife in Baltimore. Nobody got in nobody's way, so I guess you could say it was a good day. Least a little better than the day in Baltimore. Does anybody hear us pray for Michael Brown or Freddie Gray? Peace is more than the absence of war. That last line really does hit home when you think about it. Just because we are not at war, we call it peacetime, and yet out there on the streets, it is anything but. We're tired of crying and people dying. Let's take all the guns away. At the end of the track, Prince makes what sounds like a news broadcast in a kind of garbled effect. We have to interrupt the regular scheduled programming to bring you up to date on a developing situation in Los Angeles. This seems to be a reference to the 1992 LA riots, highlighting the fact that nothing has changed and that it's a continuous circle of violence. Next time we'll look at Prince's heartbreak and religious songs, party anthems and his war on record companies.